All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the Energy Captains. Whitney, it's great to see you. There's been a lot of great, news as of late, right? You sent some articles over after the draft, so I'm really excited to hear about that. And then also we want to let people know, Whitney, what's been going on at Super Bowl. That was a great experience seeing you there. There was a fishing tournament as well, which was awesome. And in Syracuse, we got dog walking. We got a whole lot to talk about. But Whitney, please share with us about the draft and what's your life been like lately.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, 2024 has been very kind to us from a sports perspective. Very appreciative for all that's happened because, as you all know, it's been a long journey. So,
Yeah.
just to backtrack, when I thought about becoming an agent, and by the way, I give you credit for this, and I also blame you for this because
Respect. It's a part of the game.
I would have never in a million years thought to explore the agent world if it weren't for your encouragement. And if I knew now what I know that if I knew then what I know now, I
Yeah.
think that I probably wouldn't have even thought about the process. Like,
Oh,
sorry
really?
to undertake. Yeah, because basically the agents are in charge of funding the players' living and training expenses.
Whoa. Time out, Whitney. So you're saying that this comes out of pocket. So what you're saying is you're a small so what you're saying is an agent, you had to become a small business owner and really be in the negative before you get to the positive. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and you forgot to mention that when you said you should become an agent. And maybe it was good that I did it blindly because there's no way I would have pursued the process if I had known all that was involved and everything it was going to take, and just how literally impossible it is to get a client on a team. I mean,
Wait.
spent the last, well, first of all, from the beginning, as I mentioned, I had to petition the NFLPA to be able to take the exam because I didn't go to law school or business school.
What
And
year was this? What year was this, Whitney? I'm sorry.
no, so I think I started the application process in 2020, like at
Mm,
the time. And so I believe there was no test in 2020 because it was the pandemic. I
yeah.
word correctly. So everyone who applied when I applied had like a year and a half to study for the exam by the time it finally took place. And I had like 3 weeks before the exam once my petition was
No
approved.
big deal. No big deal. No big deal.
Pass rate my year was like 38.8%. And it was thanks to you guys, you and Brandon and,
Yeah.
players who wrote letters on my behalf. And I have no
Yeah.
doubt that's what got the petition approved. So every step of the way, I'd be excited for a few minutes that, I made it one step further. And then it was the reality of all that was to come. And,
Yeah.
the test required so much studying. I mean, you
What were
have,
those like? Yeah, because like you think a real estate exam, Whitney, kids are graduating from school, like graduate. I went to Syracuse graduation recently. We'll talk about that. But can
yeah.
you describe what those tests are like? It's different from your ESPN exams, which you crushed, and you can tell people about later. But what are those exams like?
So the test is based upon the CBA, which is like 500 pages of legal language. So again, that's why it probably benefits people who are lawyers because you have to know the jargon, which I know none of.
Thank God your parents are lawyers and your brother's a lawyer, but but it still doesn't prepare you for what's to come, which I'm glad you passed.
Yeah, I am too. It's sort of a miracle. And by the way, it's like 60 multiple choice questions and it's like rated on a bell curve or something. And, you would think normally you'd press a button and you'd find out, did I pass? Did I not? Have questions right. But you actually wait 6 weeks and then you get an email like yes or no. And so I just remember it came
It's
in.
like a bar exam.
Yeah, it's like that's exactly right because it's a legal exam and
uh,
required so much studying. And by the way, there's math involved to figure out compensation and salaries and just different rules of every step of the process. So it's a ton of memorization. And also it's similar to probably the way people talk about the bar exam. You have to, it's the certain ways of thinking. Uh,
uh,
you can't
and
memorize.
don't be a woman for you know what I mean, taking these tests because right, who made these tests at the beginning? I mean, there's Whitney, like, can you describe too when it comes to being a woman taking this test, right? Like, if you think about standardized testing, they have to change the way that is because people come from different cultures and different backgrounds. So, from being in a diverse background, how was taking that test for you?
So I don't like tests because
Yeah.
standardized person to begin with. Like I'm like an outside of the box. Like how can I come up with the one in a million solution to pull off a miracle that no one's thinking of? Like the word standardized like fits nowhere with who I am.
Yeah.
And also, like, frankly, things that make a good agent or the reasons that you encourage me to take the test aren't measured on the exam. So they don't say, how nurturing are you? How much are you going to care about your clients? Can you write
Yeah.
about times that you've been there for them when they
You
really
can't measure heart on a test. Yeah.
your heart on a test? That's exactly right. And then it was just such a sick feeling because no matter how much you study, I mean, the test really messes with you. Like,
Yeah.
everyone thinks it's really hard, and clearly for good reason, since most people don't pass, or at least my year, there's a very small pass rate, and I understand they want to weed people out, but I had done so much preparation and I felt so ready, and then I took the test and I just like was almost numb because
Not numb, Whitney. Not numb.
I just was like walking like a zombie because it just messed with me. Like I knew I was prepared,
Did
but
it take you back to your Florida days when you were at UF? Like,
I
but
had no idea how I
you
did.
passed those tests easy.
So then I finally get the email that I pass, and it's the last. So you have 3 years to sign a client to an active roster. So as of
Yeah.
September 30th this year, if I did not have a client on a team, I would have had to retake the entire exam and start the process over. And I don't know that I would have been approved again. So the clock was ticking. And for the last 2 years, I've been trying to find guys through connections or um, just, maybe people who didn't have an agent at the last minute or
What's been the toughest part about that journey?
I mean, the single toughest part is that you have people who are super wealthy or have a lot of funding who are
Uh,
able to basically buy up the top clients and probably started recruiting them back in the day, especially with NIL,
wow.
starting those
Yeah.
conversations. And, I mean, someone mentioned that CAA paid Will Levis last year like $300,000 just to sign with them. Right.
Talking about and mayonnaise sponsorship too, by the way. Don't forget the don't
And
get the mayonnaise sponsorship.
exactly. So if you're a big company like CAA, you're wealthy to begin with. So you have that money.
Yeah.
I am one person who has a marketing and branding business in the sports world who's doing my best to just try and make ends meet. I don't have the extra $100,000. And the thing that's frustrating is there's no regulation, there's no equity or parity or anything. Basically, it's just whoever can buy the
Oh wow.
and so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best people or the most qualified agents or the ones
Yeah.
who serve them.
Yeah.
I always used to say, I was, most people can just be agents. Like that's what they get to do. That's their job. I was running my marketing business during the day and moonlighting as an agent because the marketing was funding the agent fees. And by the way, I had to pay a $2,500 application fee to apply to be an agent, and that's non-refundable before I even found out if my petition was approved. And every
Wow.
year you have to pay about $1,500 in agent fees, depending on how many clients you have to the NFLPA. And then you have to pay another about $1,500 for their liability insurance. So we're talking
Wow.
2 years I've paid, $3,000 each year, plus the money I've given to guys.
What do they say? You got to pay to play, huh? That's but
I'm like
it's like
my saving, like, yes, pay,
yeah.
how long can you be going in the wrong direction? So
Yeah. Well,
the
so what was the turning point? What was that turning point for you, Whitney? Like, yeah, what was that like for you?
let me just say that the last two drafts, I ended hysterically crying. I chalked the first one up to fine, this was a learning experience, but the first one was a lot of promises from teams where they said, we're for sure taking your guy in the sixth or seventh round. Worst case scenario, he'll be an undrafted free agent. Or they'd say, 100% sure we're going to take him as an undrafted free agent. And then they'd call and say, well, we changed our minds. And in my head, it's like, well, then don't use 100%. And then, but fine, I chalked it up to a learning experience and disappointment. The second year, I had three guys who basically I had signed who ended up going to mini camps, and none of them got signed from mini camps. So that was like three promising situations, and then all fell through. So I was left with nothing. And these are guys who like expected to either get drafted or undrafted free agent. Just at the last minute, the dominoes fell the wrong way. And I remember being on the phone after last year's draft with this wonderful other female agent named Sam Tiger, and she's kind of taken me under her wing and just been very supportive. And she remembered being where I was, and I think people had helped her, and so she remembered that and was just so kind and generous and wanted to help me. And I remember being on the phone with her last year and just like hysterically crying and saying, I don't know what is going to change from last year to this year. And
Yeah.
what's going to change in a year? I've been doing all the same things, everything I can think of, you name it. I mean, I've had all these promising meetings, connections, and just 1,000 out of 1,000 times they've fallen through. And
Yeah.
I was on the way to take Chad, my boyfriend, to a
Yeah.
endoscopy in December, and I got a call from a guardian angel named Jason Bernstein, who's Jason Kelsey's agent,
Yeah.
and was looking to bring on a marketing person to his team, and asked me if I was interested. And we had been introduced years ago through mutual friends, and just had followed each other on social media ever since. But I didn't even know he remembered I existed, and obviously Jason Kelsey's blowing up this year. And there was no bigger player in the game. So, I was appreciative Jason thought of me because he literally could have taken anyone. So I started doing the marketing for his clients in January, and I asked him, hey, look, I know I belong here. I'm meant to be an agent. Like, you are in a position to help me. Can you please help me? I just like, as part of our dynamic of working together, would you be willing to put me on the SRA of one of the guys who's who you think will get drafted this year? And he was kind enough to do that.
What does that mean, Whitney, an SRA? What does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So there's a variety of different documents between you and your client or the player, that you submit to the NFLPA. And so the SRA is the standard representation agreement, and it just outlines the agreement and the details of the agreement between you and the client. So if there's ever a dispute, there's paperwork to go back to.
Okay.
It officially puts you on record as the client or player's agent. So
Yeah.
added me to it. And I, even after that, I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
so relieved I'm on his.
That,
But
I mean, that's a big deal. Like, what is it like? Like, number one, like, how often does that happen? Whitney? Yeah, really quick. Like, I know we're going through this whole journey. I know it took a while. It's hard to fit that into this whole podcast, but like, what does that look like for you to build the trust, not only throughout the NFLPA with athletes, and of course, you have to have 7 years of experience, I think, before you can become an agent without having a master's degree or something like that. But like,
I think
what's it been like to finally get that break, to get on an SRA? Like, what does that take for, what advice do you have for other people who want to get to that position?
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it ended up being a connection that I didn't even realize would be valuable. And so I think continuing to be the person that you are and make sure that if you're doing things the right way, like there are people watching who
Mm-hmm.
are noticing, and like that will come back to benefit you, even if it doesn't feel like that. Because there were so many times I felt like I'm like too pure or too like good-hearted of a person to be in this industry, because it really is, there are a lot of slimy parts of it. But it was nice to know that someone appreciated who I was and the way that I,
Yeah.
and that they were looking for that type of personality. And also, I mean, like I say with anything else, it's persistence and positivity. You have to
Yeah.
just keep going, and no matter how many times you get knocked down, which was like literally 1,000 for me,
Yeah.
it was like a dark cloud hanging over my head for 3 years, and there was nothing
Yeah.
to fix
And
it. Go ahead.
how did that pay off, like on draft day? Like, what, this past year? I mean, yeah, what is that like? Yeah, bring us into that moment, Whitney. I know you gave us the background. Can you bring us into that moment where you talked about just supporting, you being a good person and other people supporting you, right? You what you give is what you get, essentially. What was that like on draft day? SRA, that happened, and then time passed. Yeah, what was draft day like? Bring us in there, please.
Oh, goodness. Well, let me just say I changed up the environment compared to where I watched the last two drafts, because I was like, that was bad luck, so let's watch it somewhere else this time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I watched them from my apartment. And the thing about having a player drafted is you don't know when it's going to happen. So Jason had told me he was probably going to be a six rounder, but you still don't know for sure. And then the sixth round, as it's, so I start, so this is Saturday of the draft, which is day 3. So I've watched all 3 days. So it's kind of a marathon. And day 3 starts around 12 o'clock and it's rounds 4 through 7. So there's a lot to get through. And you're just kind of sitting there watching names called, holding your breath, knowing, oh, my whole career hangs on these, few hours. It's make or break. I don't know if or when this is going to happen. And if this doesn't happen, like I may have to give up the dream of being an agent. Like there's no like plan B. And by the way, after I signed the SRA, so I'm the agent on the contract, I thought, oh, finally after all this, I'm good to go. No, you don't actually have your status saved until you sign your name on the contract with the team the player signs with. So like we're going to be doing that at some point this week, but like that.
Oh, this week that's happening?
Yep. So, but like
Oh, wow.
detail that will save my status. I didn't even know. Like I thought, oh, I'm on his SRA and then he got drafted. No, no, not until my name is on his contract that he's, in the process of finalizing and signing. That if you're
Oh,
an
wow.
free agent, you sign it a few days after the draft, obviously undrafted.
That's what I did. Yeah, yeah.
When did you sign yours?
So for me, I talked about a Syracuse trip. I had a chance to speak at Syracuse recently, and I told the kids, "Hey, enjoy this." Was I couldn't walk in graduation. Right after the draft, before graduation, we had to go to OTAs or training camp, I think, and so I signed it right when I got right on site. So it's a little bit different now, but and of course, it's a little bit different. The draft was 2 weeks ago or so, and now he's about to sign this week, but. Yeah, for undrafted guys, it happens right away. And I signed for $2,000. They said, "Hey, we'll pay for the flight and hotel, but yeah,
Or
come figure
rich?
it out." Wow, yeah,
So I didn't really know. But if you're an undrafted free agent, usually you would sign at rookie mini camp or they'd send you the contract. But the drafted, they're just more logistics. It's a little bit bigger of a deal, so it takes a few more weeks. So it's like this process is making sure it's not happening until the very last possible minute that it could. But the good news is that after you're on a player's contract, it buys you another 3 years for as long as that player is playing. So say Dylan McMahon, who's the player whose contract, my new favorite name, probably all my children are going to be named Dylan McMahon at this because
Dylan and Jason. Don't forget Jason, because shout
I
out to Jason.
to Jason, and I told Jason when he first signed me that we may be naming our children after him. So like now we'll have to, every other one will be Jason between.
That's the title of this episode, Whitney, is hey, when someone gives you a blessing that changes your life, you know what? The way to repay you is to name my children after you. You are now their godparent.
I don't know how, I feel like a thank you note doesn't quite cut it. So here we go.
Godparent it is. Jason,
Yeah.
Dylan.
Kids, Jason, 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 Dylan, 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 dogs, what you name it. I'll be saying.
Wait, and talk about the dogs too, Whitney, as you kind of go through the story.
Yeah. So I'll bring them in also. But they're only, I can't remember if we've talked about this, but there are like 1,050 agents, or at least there were last time I checked with the PA, and 80 are women. So again, me
Wow.
not having this come to fruition, like it's just another, woman that would be lost that could have possibly made it better for other women. So I just felt like it was so important to preserve my status because I wanted to keep another.
To hold space. You have to hold space. Yeah.
So if Dylan plays for 10 years, for example, and on an active roster, my 3-year clock does not start until 3 years from when he's done playing. So
Okay.
all I need him to do is play for 100 years, so I never have to worry about this again.
And so what does that look like? What does that support? So when you say that, right, as a current athlete, like what does that support look like from Whitney compared to other agents, to Dylan? Because you mentioned that when you took the test, they don't measure nurturing, they don't measure the heart. So what does your support look like? What could another athlete get from an agent like Whitney that Dylan will get?
Oh my gosh. I mean, hopefully you feel this way too, but it's the same that I would give to any family member, like
Right.
love, support,
Agreed.
guidance, and also not just for the player, but Dylan's married. Like I care about genuinely building a relationship with his wife and
Yeah.
just sure that he's supported on the field, off the field, like all the ways that people don't mention or things that he might need where he doesn't have, he doesn't know who else to turn to. Like, I want to be the person that can fill
Yeah.
those gaps. I mean,
On and off the field. Like Whitney, by the time the house I'm in now, Whitney helped me build it, right? While I was in training camp, right? Like Brandon Copeland, he does this event December to Remember. Whitney's there with her family, in Tampa on site. Like her mom and dad are on site and brother on site supporting. And then also you're going out to his camps, wearing his shirts. Like there's a lot of things that you do to support not only the athlete, but just the human itself
right.
on and off the field. I think that's really important. And I'm signing off on that one myself because I'm a benefactor of that.
Appreciate that very much. And, you and I have continued to create opportunities long after your playing days were over, which does not always happen, even with star players. And I think that speaks to our genuine friendship and dynamic,
Exactly.
which I care in the
I mean, we have a podcast together called Energy Captains. I mean, come on.
bird. But yeah, I mean, just quickly going back to the dog. So I jokingly came up with this name and then it's kind of stuck. But I joke that my main business, Social Victories, marketing world, and then I joke that I have social lictories. And social victories and social lictories. And basically, I'm an animal lover. And with travel schedules and living in an apartment, it's hard to train a dog and, in and out. We just didn't think it was fair to get a dog at this point until we have
Yeah.
hard for him or her to run
I'm
around.
in the same boat. I'm in the same boat.
So you totally get it. Like, you want to make sure you provide a stable environment and it's the right time. But I absolutely love dogs. And Chad, my boyfriend, was traveling a lot during the summer. I was traveling. And so I thought, you know what? I will offer to watch dogs. And long story short, I have like 10 dog clients now. And I have one dog here now, Sunny, who can't be alone during thunderstorms. So her mom drops
Okay.
3 days a week. I mean, the stories are hilarious. I had the day of the draft, I had a 15-and-a-half-year-old Pomeranian named Grizzly who has a football harness. I'll have to show you the picture. He was the mascot the day of the draft. And
Good.
all
Keep the hopes up. Keep the spirits high there.
was like, what's better emotional support than a dog?
Yeah.
But I said that, again, like, there's a huge investment to be an agent and to try and ride this wave and have a happy ending and just kind of sort
Yeah.
of make it through. And in order to do that, you have to find other ways to come up with revenue. And so for me, I mean, I say that social victories is all the great parts of having a dog without any downsides, and people are paying you to love on their dogs. And so it was sort of a win-win. And that, it was dogs that sort of, I'm trying to,
Who let the dogs out? Yeah, yeah,
has to be my walk-up music because you got to do whatever it takes. Like, there is no ego for me.
yeah.
Was
Use
like,
your passions to fuel what you love, and to be honest, that's what social victories is about, right? You were at the MLB, you were at Gary Vaynermedia, and you did what you had to do to to live the life that you want to live, and that was in your first book, right? And I'm excited to see your second book, Whitney. Does that do you have like a dog in like the Super Bowl trophy, and your next book? Like, what does your title look like?
it's interesting because I started writing this book a while ago, actually, around the time of the pandemic, and I felt that I couldn't finish it until this moment happened. And so it was just the next day after the draft, it was a feeling of lightness and joy and like the skies, the clouds parting and sunshine coming through that I had not felt in 3 years. And I also felt like I finally had the answer to this sort of blank question mark that was dictating my life. And so now I feel like I can finish the book.
Woo! Second book is out. Is this coming out?
We're working on it. We're working.
Okay.
But it's mostly written, and it's got the whole story of catching the video of Tom Brady throwing a Super Bowl trophy.
Yeah.
I made sure to, I'll have to fine tune it, but I really did try and keep track along the way so that I could, share all that's happened since. And it,
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot more about resiliency. The
Yeah.
first one is like kind of more, I would say, inspirational, or just these are aspirational. These are lessons I think you need to know. And then the second one is a lot more about these are all the times I fell and hit my head and then how I got back up afterwards, because I do think both things are important for life.
Yeah.
You're either on stage or the other.
Question for you. So the foreword, or like, whatever you do to your dedication, of course, gonna be your family or friends. Are you gonna shout out the dog names? Are you gonna shout out what are you gonna put the dogs that helped you come along? I mean, let's think about it though, Whitney, like not only to put aside the dogs, right? Put aside your passions, but people in general. It's the people like Jason, people that move you forward. Who are some of those people that you're gonna shout out in that book outside of, of course, your parents and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I think just in general, you remember the people who were there for you when things weren't great, who believed
Yeah.
when you didn't, the things that got you through day to day. I mean, even Chad was saying, like, it's amazing how once everything came to fruition, how many congratulations I got from people that could have helped me. It was like once it works out, everyone wants to be part of the party, but you really remember the people who were there trying to help you out when, things were the
When we
toughest.
were shooting in the gym, the lights were out. You're like, hey, I'm shooting. Yeah.
Well, and I think back at some of the stories. I had one dog that I was walking in my building, and the mom was Russian, and so she only spoke Russian to the dog. So she told me, I had to use Russian to get this dog back in the crate.
Duolingo.
I'm there Google translating. I'm like, I wonder if there are any other agents trying to figure out Russian to speak to a dog to get it back. I mean, the things that I had to do in between to make it work. I mean, I had to have
Yeah.
multiple jobs while trying to keep the dream alive, and that's not easy, but that's
Yeah.
what. And
It's the pit to the palace, Whitney. Sometimes you got to go through the pit to get to the palace. And, actually, benefited from one of those, before the draft happened with fishing, which was great through through your connection. Would you mind kind of describe? I know you're about to tell me a little quick story, but would you mind kind of parlaying that as well? I know Dylan Fish is your new your new client there, but would love to hear about kind of how you just parlayed, your blessings while you were in the pit through to the palace.
Sure. And I think it's a good reminder that life has a funny way of working out, because to backtrack, you and I were trying to go to a Lightning playoff game, and it was the last regular season game. The Lightning had already clinched their spot in the
Oh yeah.
And so we thought, oh, it'll be easy to get tickets. Everyone's saving their money for the playoffs. So we went to dinner first with your wife, Erinique, and we ended up having so much to catch up on. Again, back to our genuine friendship, that there were more important things than the game, and we just ended up talking for so many hours. Well,
Yeah, like 2 or 3 hours.
and through those conversations, like, we were able to catch up and get current on each other's lives. And the next day I got a call from Jason, again, Jason Kelsey's agent.
Jason, I'm sorry.
He swoops in all the time, and he basically said, this fishing tournament has an extra spot. Do you know anyone in Florida who could get to Miami tonight, and
Yeah.
could partake in this fishing tournament? And I'm like, oh, and by the way, it was being broadcast on national TV.
Yeah,
So
it's called the catch.
catch. Yep. I was like, there's no one I know who's more gung-ho about, because you and I always talk about just crack open the door and then you'll swing it wide open. Like, you were the perfect person. Plus, sometimes I don't know if you're in LA or Tampa. Well, because we had dinner the night before, I knew you were here. So I called you with Jason on the phone. I was like, hey, do you want to drive to Miami tonight? And yeah, so take it from there. Tell us about how the weekend went. I was about it.
Well, yes. Shout out to that. Thank you for that alley-oop there, Whitney. And shout out to the catch. I know Dylan, I was going through before the show today. I was going through Dylan's Instagram, and I see he has pictures of fish, of sharks. He's catching different things. And so I'm like, Whitney, we got to talk about that on the show. We'd love to go fishing with Dylan at some point. But the catch was really awesome. Shout out to Jason. I don't know if people saw, but Jameis Winston, was on CBS kind of interviewing the fish on the ground. That was hilarious. The day before, Whitney, it would look good on camera, but the day before, your boy Cam Lynch raised his hand. Whitney, shout out for this opportunity. Me and wifey went down to Miami in 3.5 hours, got there around 11 o'clock at night. Whitney, 6:30 wake-up call, limited hydration, limited sleep. I got on that boat, Whitney, and I was good for about 2 hours. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Whitney, that third hour, we got to like the deepest, not the deepest part of the ocean. We're kind of like out of the vision of seeing, the land. At that point, Whitney, I'm on a smaller professional fishing boat. It was great. There's a brother captain, him and his son. We had a outstanding time. But once that boat stopped, Mother Nature kicked in. That water started rocking. My stomach was officially unsettled, and Whitney, I was on the side of the boat for about 2.5 hours. I'm not that type of guy to kind of go in early. So I was on the side of the boat for about 2.5 hours, in and out a little bit. Whitney, there was guys were catching fish. They're like, Cam, grab the rod. I was like, guys, you know what? My purpose on this boat is to connect with you all, right? Not to really catch fish. But
are you saying you left some souvenirs over the side of the boat?
So we call it chum, Whitney. Actually, I attracted the fish because of the chum that I supplied them. And, I've been on multiple fishing boats. Whitney, we talked about this, multiple fishing boats. But my respect for fishing has now increased. So next year, the catch, I will be hydrating beforehand. I'm going to get a good night's rest prior to. Maybe, Whitney, you can come down there and we can do our Energy Captains podcast and interview folks. But it was a truly eye-opening experience, and tips for everybody. Do Dramamine before you get on a boat, no matter if you're you're good on the water or not. Dramamine.
I think that was going to be like, it didn't even cross my mind that you might get seasick, because you have gone fishing here a bunch. You've always been out on boats here in the Tampa area. So
yeah, some of my teammates and all that. Yeah.
I think this would be second nature for you, and you're always game for anything, and you always seem to manage the situations flawlessly. So I felt so bad when I heard about the season. I roped you into this opportunity, and then I was like, oh no, I made him sick. I felt terrible. So hopefully it was still worth it, and you got to see Messi play.
Yeah, that part, Whitney, Messi. So that was the great part about it, Whitney, is for me. So after I got sick, my wife ended up picking me up at a dock. I was okay. And then that night, of course, brushed my grill, Whitney, hopped in the shower, and then went to the after party. So it was great. We saw Big Boy perform. Grew up in Atlanta. My wife went to Georgia State. So that was excellent. And then the next day, we got to go see Messi, Whitney. That was outstanding. Seeing Messi do a corner kick. He had 3 goals that day, which was insane. A hat trick. And the craziest part, Whitney, 2 crazy things. When he would come to the side and do a corner kick, people would stand up and they would go, Messi. They would start doing this. And I didn't do that, Whitney, because that kind of threw me off a little bit. Like, hey, Messi, kind of bowing down. I didn't really like that, but I was clapping Messi. And then the second craziest thing, Whitney, which was I'd never seen, at halftime, as soon as Messi went into the locker room, people got up out of their seat and started running down the steps because they didn't want to miss him coming back out to prepare for the next half, Whitney. So I was like looking to my left, to my right, and people were literally booking it downstairs. And then the third thing, no one was on their phones. But if they were taking videos, it was cool. But everyone wants to see every move that Messi made. It was kind of, because I see LeBron play. It was kind of sickening to see the attention to detail of Messi's every move. It was crazy.
I know. I wonder how he lives life. But I mean, it shows what a rare and unique opportunity is. It's like being star to be able to see him. So I feel like that alone made the trip worth it. And then there were many other benefits too. Also, I heard you just got to do something super cool at Syracuse. So fill us in on that opportunity, because you've been killing it lately with your, million careers and, worldwide cam.
Yeah, no, it's great, Whitney. I think you talk about this after Super Bowl. For me, it's been kind of chill, which has been great. Someone told me enjoy the seasons while you can, because once it's hot, it starts to increase. And so for me, it was a season of rest, of reflection. So a lot of reading. I've been crushing books, Whitney, which has been really cool. And I've been writing a lot. I've been resting a lot. And this past week, I was able to go to Syracuse to go to the CUSE Awards. And I was able to speak to the seniors and, give them their farewell speech. And it was amazing. Just you talk about going from the pit to the palace. Like, it was like the Super Bowl was high, and then it was like chill, and then it was up again. And while I was chilling, I was preparing for the moment to be able to speak in front of a crowd, in front of an audience that I'm 10 years removed from. Whitney, these kids are like 20, and I'm 30. And, I can tell them my hairline's going, like getting gray hairs. And to be able to share some words of wisdom with them was outstanding. So it felt great.
What piece of advice did you tell them?
So you talk about pieces of advice that I shared with them. I gave them some quotes, Whitney, some of my favorite quotes, actually. One of them is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. I think it's an African proverb. It's one of my favorites. Of course, people don't remember what you say, but how you treat them, by Maya Angelou. That's my second favorite. And my third one from Greg Harden. He's actually Tom Brady wrote his foreword, but he's Michigan's secret weapon, and he says it's dream big, become big, and be big. And become big. And basically, it's that concept of if you think you're dreaming big, you're not dreaming big enough because there's always more to do and further to go. But also at the same time be present, Whitney, because as you know, you can't really write a book unless you go through something, unless you go through adversity, unless you're present in what you're doing. So, shoot, I might get my book going pretty soon too here, Whitney. It's
Those pieces of advice are so wise, and those kids don't even realize how lucky they were to hear from the guru.
Bless.
Literally Gandhi, and just like how much
Gandhi,
how much
Nelson Mandela.
how much what you said will truly help them in their lives. And actually, I was thinking back, part of when people say like, how did you talked about before, how did you persevere through some of the tough moments? And I think it's very important to remember your why.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a why, I don't know how you get through hard moments in career or in life, because otherwise you don't even know why you're there, and you can't identify the moments that make the process worthwhile. So you and I had talked about doing this podcast at the Super Bowl, and life got busy. But for me, I would love to hear your perspective, being on the business side, because I've only ever been on that side. So what were your takeaways as a player? And just going back quickly to my why, you working with Visa put on this amazing event.
Oh yeah.
Where I got to see you, one of my clients, and Brandon Copeland, another, come together on the world's biggest stage. Of the people they could have chosen, it was the guys that I've worked with. There was no, it brings tears to my eyes. It did.
Yeah.
That moment of being at the Super Bowl was my why. That was my Super Bowl victory. Strive for. And so that moment is forever going to stay with me. And I would just love to hear your perspective on the business side of being at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's a mic drop there, because that's on my LinkedIn page. That picture of me, Brandon, Devon Kennard, it was almost like we were playing on the football fields. Like I was a linebacker, Brandon was a middle linebacker, outside, and Devon was like the Sam. It was like 1, 2, 3, but we were in business mode. We were in business mode, and we had our style, our swag while we were up there. And it was nice to share the stage with respected people in football, on the business side of football, Whitney, not just regular. We talk about Brandon Copeland. Well, you've been working with Brandon Copeland for a while, and same as myself. And it was easy for me to to continue working with you after I played, because you had someone like Brandon Copeland on your side. So full circle moments where Brandon Copeland has done financial education summits or events, for Visa, and around the same time that I was working at Visa. And then so I was able for 2 years to work behind the scenes and say, hey, Brandon is a leader in this space. I think we should partner with him and do a summit at some point. And so fast forward 2 years, which was this past year, we were able to do a summit, and Brandon Copeland was our point guard. He was our leader of the summit through the whole entire NFL, along with Usama Young and then Devon Kennard as well, the shooting guard. And so being able to partner with those guys, you talk about our why. My why is to bridge, be the bridge for the field to the boardroom, whether it be athletes, my business partners, but to be able to bridge those folks and be that connector. And so to be able to pull off something like that at Visa, which is, top 12 country in the world, and to do that with not only my business partner with Whitney, but also Brandon, the NFL, and Visa. All my whys are coming together. And so in my media, so I have a media company. One of my teammates that helped me start my media company, Megan Wiggins, was able to capture content there. So literally, this was one of the best Super Bowls that I've been to. And now at this point, Whitney, we gotta start going to some dog championships, to put our whys there. You know what I mean? I'll capture content. The dog that you walk, they'll compete. But it's just really cool to partner with the proper people and go execute our passions, whether it be walking dogs, whether it be capturing content, financial literacy, and then just the Super Bowl Radio Row. It was outstanding. What was your experience?
Yeah, I love first of all, I almost feel like every Super Bowl should be in Vegas. It was so well primed for a Super Bowl. fun. I mean, some of the ones in LA, because there's just so many different events that you end up going to, and there's a lot of back-to-back events. And so just being able to hop from hotel to hotel was the perfect convenience. And also, there's just a lot of fun activities when you're not focused on work. I almost said, like, I have to come back for a whole separate trip to do all the fun things like I wish I could have done.
Yeah. Like the Sphere, I wish I went inside the Sphere.
I know, like there were just so many fun things that there wasn't even enough time. And the weather was great. Everyone was just having a blast, and it was fun for me seeing you flex your broadcasting muscles again at Radio Row and the connections you make there. I mean, it was the liveliest Radio Row I remember.
Yeah.
Like electric. I mean, there was Dr. Oz over here, and everywhere you looked and turned around, there was so electric a moment happening. You got to go on WDAE, the hometown Tampa station, like moment after moment. It was just boom, 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 and I was on cloud nine the entire time.
Yeah.
Most exciting hopping Radio Row I can remember.
It was busy.
It was busy, and also be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that the event that you put together with Visa. I mean, such a major company to be able to innovate a new event. I mean, bravo to you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you. First time it's happened. Yeah.
First time, right? Like, I mean, and you're rather new to the company, and we're able to bring that to fruition. Like, that's legendary. And also, the audience was other players. So, the athletes at the biggest event for the NFL, in the world, you and some of the other guys I work with are up there giving advice to other guys in the league. Like, you are the ones chosen to even help other players. And so I think that was even more meaningful to me because, again, I always say I can't make things happen necessarily on the field, but at least off the field we can work on life after sports in your career. And just the way that to have you guys selected as the ones when they could have had any NFL player to give advice to
anybody.
Players, that says it all. So I would
the
say,
goal is do it again.
Seriously, Visa, I hope you're listening. Again. Repeat. It was magical. So hopefully everyone's on board. Okay, as we sort of wrap up here, what is one thing that you're looking forward to this summer? And then we'll obviously have to, record again soon and talk about whatever we're looking forward to.
Yeah, one thing I'm looking forward to this summer is our 1 year anniversary. Me and wifey, gonna fly back to Hawaii pretty soon here for her birthday. It's like half anniversary, which is cool. And then we're going to a wedding in Europe, and so we're gonna take like a trip to Africa and Egypt and Kenya. So I'm really looking forward to that because it's been since September 1st of last year when we got married. It's been quite the year. It's been quite the year. I filled you in, Whitney, in our conversation when we were talking at the Lightning, quote unquote, Lightning game that we were supposed to go to. But it's been quite the year. So it's going to be nice to have like that trip and hope come back in one piece, praying and reflect on that. So I'm looking forward to that for my 1 year, for my what's next for Cam.
Awesome. You guys are the dream team, and that wedding was so much fun. And talk about perfect weather every day. I always talk Jill, our mutual friend at the Bucks, was just like, I remember opening the blinds. There were like the Pacific Ocean, dolphins jumping outside my all the best people. Like, please take me back. Like, it was just an oasis and paradise for all of us. Obviously,
what are you looking forward to?
So at my sort of what I'm looking forward to is very similar. For like a couple years, I met someone in an airport way back who told me about this place in Alaska. So I'm like such a nature, wildlife, scenery person, like that I would travel full time if I could.
Soon.
Yeah, there's this place I've been wanting to go to in Alaska. It's called the Kenai Peninsula. And there's one lodge there, and you have to take 2 small planes from Anchorage. So you fly to Anchorage and take 2 small planes, and it's the largest concentration of grizzly bears in the world. So there's 2,400 of them, and this lodge is known for fostering photography. So I'm planning to watch those grizzly bears come out of hibernation with their cubs and catch salmon, and just like this is like a bucket list item for me, and you have to reserve it like years in advance. So it's finally coming up at the beginning of June. So I'm excited to regroup and talk about all of our travels and our wildlife.
Okay. I hope you stay safe.
Thank you.
I hope you stay safe with the bears. Of course, for me, when it comes to the wildlife and the animals, I got to stay safe out there. But hey, praying for we come back in one piece. Whitney, the Energy Captain episode has been outstanding. It's been good to hear your draft story. It's been nice to and even talk about the Super Bowl. It's been nice to speak about the dog, the dog walking. And I'm excited, Whitney, to hear about the title of your new book. I know I wasn't expecting you to share that, Whitney. A lot of times I poke and prod, but it's really cool to hear that you're writing another one.
Oh yeah, and I mean I've had it in my mind, but I've learned from this whole like until it's happening, I want to be able to come out of the gate and say it once and not have to, change it up. So I've known it for a long time, and once it's real, we'll leave a little cliffhanger for a future episode. Always
Yes.
you, Cam. These are, my as I told you in the beginning, my favorite time of the day, and every episode I'm so grateful for our partnership and what we've been able to create in this industry and continue to collaborate together to make magic happen. So
Yeah.
more ahead.
Energy Captains, we're signing out. Whitney, much love, and I will chat with you soon.